Patients will only take their condition as seriously as you do and as your team members or your staff members do.
Welcome to AMC. I'm Dr. Greg Miller. Nutrition is vital to the long-term health of your patients. Today, Dr. Todd Osborne shares the keys to better patient compliance with nutrition. Let's get started.
So let's talk about patient compliance today. And doesn't it really all come down to that? The patients that are compliant do well. The patients that are not compliant are not going to do well. No matter how great a doctor you are, no matter how good your skills are, no matter how good your techniques are, no matter how good your nutritional supplements that you give to people are, it really comes down that they have to implement, right? They have to do it in order for them to get well. And that's what it comes down to, is a non-compliant patient cannot get well, or certainly cannot get the type of results that they should get or they could potentially get if they're non-compliant. So doctor, that's one of your jobs, is to make sure that the patient is compliant, to make sure that they follow up and do what they're supposed to do in order to get well. And, it really comes down to taking their condition seriously. Patients will only take their condition as seriously as you do and as your team members or your staff members do. And if you don't take it seriously, they won't take it seriously. Now, I wanted to specifically talk about nutritional patient compliance. If you're doing a nutrition program in your clinic or want to implement a nutritional program into your clinic, because that's a little bit different. Obviously, keeping patients compliant, having them come for their appointments and get their chiropractic adjustments, you know whether they're getting those or not. You know if they're showing up and you're delivering that adjustment. Now, maybe their exercises or the other things that you give them to do at home, that's a little more difficult for you to know if they're doing those. But the actual adjustments, you know they're going to be there. So it's a little more difficult with the nutrition, because these are things you're sending them home with, whether it's nutritional supplementation or dietary recommendations, foods to avoid due to food sensitivities, whatever the case might be. You're really at their mercy of whether they're going to do that or not. So you have to take it seriously. You have to make sure they understand that whatever nutritional deficiency they might have or food sensitivity they might have, it is serious to their health, and they're not going to take it any more seriously than you do. So that's number one. Make sure that you're getting the point across to them that this is something they really need to deal with, they really need to address for their health moving forward. And essentially, you have to create new habits for them, right? And so they're out of they've never done this before. Maybe they've never taken supplements, or they'll do it for a week or two and then it kind of falls off the list of things to do, right? Their daily reminders, and they don't follow through like they should. So you need to have some things in place. Obviously, you need to check up on them whenever they're coming back in for their chiropractic adjustments, their other visits. You need to have reminders set for you so that you can ask them how their compliance is going. Are you taking these? Are you avoiding these foods? Make sure that you have, whether it's in your file, in your notes system, or your travel card, you need something there to remind you, because as soon as you take it for granted and aren't checking up with it, then most of the patients will not follow through and keep going on that. And if you give a patient something to do, you better make sure they do it, because as soon as you don't, then how about all the other things you told them to do? You need to be here twice a week to get adjusted. Well, he didn't really make me follow through on these other instructions. He didn't make me follow through on the nutrition. She didn't make me follow through on my exercises. So do I really need to follow through with being here 2 times a week? So you open a can of worms there. So anything you give them to do, you make sure you're following up on it, making sure that they're doing what you ask them to do. So make sure you have those reminders in there. Another thing on the nutritional side is a food chart or a food diary. Now, you can tell them that you want to see it and you can see what they're eating in that, but it's really more for them, because when they have to write that down, or maybe they're putting it into their phone, they have to address that. They have to think about it. And so, instead of me eating this thing that I shouldn't be eating, I'm going to have to write that down, and my doctor may see that, and I don't want to do that. So it's just another compliance thing that you can put into play. And again, is it some for you? Yeah, you can look at it clinically and go through quickly and make recommendations on it, but it's really for the patient, for their own compliance, and to give them something to do every day to remind them that I should be taking my supplements, I should be staying away from these particular foods, and helping them get as healthy as they can possibly be. You also have to advise them some on just how do you do this nutrition. It's new for some of them, and they're like, oh, well, I'm traveling, and when I travel, I don't take it with me. And I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever, right? Because probably when you travel, your diet's worse than ever, so you probably need your supplementation more than ever before. So you have to tell them, how to divide them up in packets and take them with you, or whatever the case might be, but give them some ideas on how to stay compliant with it, excuse eliminators, if you will, and remove their excuses. And the number one way that I've found on compliance is retesting. So don't guess, make sure you're testing with people. You're doing your blood test, you're doing your saliva test, you're doing your gut test, whatever it is that you're utilizing to make sure that these people are on the correct nutrition that they're taking, and then retest it. And so if somebody tested for low vitamin D and you've put them on a certain protocol and regimen of a vitamin D supplement, then you need to retest that at whatever the appropriate time period is. And if it's going up, then you know that they're following the instructions. If it's not, or it goes down, then you know that this patient is probably not following protocol. There could be some other situations that come into play with that. But clinically, then you know what's going on with the patient. And that helps the patient stay compliant too, because they know, hey, I'm going to be retested for this. So I need to make sure I'm doing my part with this, because they don't want to get into that test and find out that they haven't made any progress or nothing is changing. So again, take it seriously. The patient will never take it any more seriously than you do. Keep track, remind them. You are a doctor, one of your main jobs is to make sure your patients are compliant, because a non-compliant patient cannot get well or reach their potential health that they could. And make sure you're following up with your reevaluations, your retesting, to monitor what is going on with the patient, and not to just monitor them when they're not doing it, but also to encourage them when they are. People love to see that proof in the pudding that, hey, it is working, it is getting better, and that encourages them to stay compliant with any other nutritional recommendations that you have. I hope this is helpful to you. Have an absolutely awesome day.
Doc, we've got a live Zoom call on July 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern with more detail on nutrition in your practice. Register at amcfamily.com/calendar. AMC is here to help your practice become respected, effective, and valued.